no rush. Looks like Captain got the doors to work. Hi, Kelly. I'm ready when you are. Good evening. We do have a member of the Minister Alliance with us this evening. Would you please come forward?
I'm going to read scripture. This is out of Isaiah 41. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. For I am the Lord your God, who takes hold of you by your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. Dear Lord, we ask that when we go through the storms of life, that we will know that you are there, that when we're afraid, we will turn to you for help, that you will be our strength. Lord, I ask you to uphold each of the city council members here tonight, for all of our first responders, for our police, our fire team, EMS, everybody that works for the city and the grounds crew and everybody, the school, the teachers, the staff, everyone who makes this city work. Lord, I ask you to be with them. Remind them that you are there, to hold our right hand and tell us not to be afraid, for you are with us. Lord, I ask that you be with each and every member here and help us to love and honor you with all that we say and all that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call the March 17th, 2025 Board of Alderwomen meeting to order. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Pam Pope,
Here.
Tracy Newcomer,
Here.
Sierra McMichael,
Here.
Melissa Johnson,
Here.
Kelly Netto,
Here.
Rachel Kilmer,
Here.
and Mayor Dana Webb.
Here, thank you. The next item on the agenda is new business, deletions, or continuances. We do not have any of those this evening, so we will move on to public comments. City Clerk, do we have any public comments tonight?
There are none.
No public comments this evening, so we will move on to our next item, which is a consent agenda. These items are considered on the consent agenda so that members of the Board of Alderwomen, by unanimous consent, can designate routine items to be approved by one motion. Tonight, we have approval of the March 3rd, 2025 Board of Alderwomen meeting minutes and the February 10th, 2025 Special Board of Alderwomen meeting workshop, expenditures through March 13th, 2025, and the February 2025 financial statement.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Yeah, I need a delay. We have, just so you know, audience, we have two of the alderwomen online, and there's a delay. So if you hear me pause, it's not an awkward moment. We're just pausing. It is approved. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. We do not have any unfinished business tonight, so our first, we do have unfinished business, excuse me. Our first unfinished business would be the presentation by the Snai Valley Fire District regarding upcoming levy question.
Thank you.
Chief Barnett, the floor is yours.
Okay, we'll get our slideshow up here. Can everybody hear me?
Is the mic on?
Yes.
I believe so.
Okay.
Okay, I apologize that I wasn't able to make last meeting. We had a medical incident at our home, and so it's a long story we won't go into, but we're here tonight. So as some of you may or may not know, Snai Valley does have a levy question on the upcoming April ballot. In 2018, the citizens of the Fire Protection District approved a 35-cent levy increase. That rate implemented over 3 years, 5, 15, and 15. That approved rate took our levy, our general operating levy, to $1.02 at the end of that 3 years. When the last part of that levy was implemented in 2020, that rate had already began the rollback process, and actually in 2020 it was at $1.01. So we'd lost by the time it fully implemented, we'd lost a penny. So go ahead to the next slide. Thank you. So we want to bring our operating levy back to currently by 16 cents. That increase does not raise it above that originally approved rate. It raises it back to that originally approved $1.02 from 2020. So as we know, rollbacks occur. Before we saw major rollbacks occur over the last few years, we have been able to see incremental growth that allowed us to add numbers, add programs, and different things like that. But as we all kind of know, there's been a lot of erratic changes in the assessed valuation process over the last few years, and large increases and large changes affect that rollback. Next slide, please. So why does the levy roll back? The Sni Valley Fire Protection District, along with other public entities that are tax supported, are subject to the Hancock Amendment. That's Article 10, Sections 18 through 24 of the Missouri Constitution. So essentially what it does is that it protects the taxpayer from whenever the levy or the assessed valuation goes up too much. It doesn't allow the levy rate to continue with that and affect your tax bill at a higher than the consumer price index will allow, or 5%. The rollback is there, like I said, as a protection factor, and in theory, it's not a bad thing, especially for the taxpayer. The problem is that when the levy rate rolls back, and we'll see a graphic on that here in a moment, it never resets itself, and so it's always in this continual rollback, and it never gets back to that originally approved sum, unless everything is unless your assessed valuation drops way, way down, which it never does. It may drop a little bit, and we actually see that in our history. So, like I said, our approved levy rate was $1.02, and in 2020, when it fully implemented, we had already lost 1 penny. In 2023, we'd actually lost 18 cents. And then in 2024, our assessed valuation actually went down enough to gain us back 2 cents. And so that's where we're at, is we are 16 cents behind or where we were originally approved. We're at 86 cents now. So why do we want to return those levy rates to that originally approved level? Well, as we all know, cost of doing business has increased every year, just the same as every household. Fire district, the school district, the city, everybody is affected by those things. So our total cost of doing business has increased by 30% since 2020. Our district personnel costs have increased by 29% since 2020. Our call load has increased 30%. And our current concurrent or back-to-back calls continues to sustain at about 37%. So what that means is in 2024, 1,007 calls were occurring at the same time as other calls. And that might be one other call, 2, maybe even we've had up to 8 and 10 calls occurring at one time. And obviously, when you start to get into 4 and 5 calls occurring at once, our resources can't handle those. We have to rely on other people. But we don't want to have to rely on other agencies every time we have a second call, or maybe even a third. Next slide, please. So, one of the things with what we saw before, go back one, please. Yeah. one of the things we saw before we saw these major rollbacks is we were actually able to incrementally grow our staffing. In the fire industry, we run 3 different shifts, and we run on 24-hour shifts. Currently, our schedule is 2 back-to-back 24-hour shifts, or 48 hours in the station. And so normally when you hire personnel, we hire in 3s. So 3s, 6s. We did a big hiring in 2018 of 9 personnel to bring her up to closer to our current staffing now. But what we've been able to do, instead of doing that with the growth of the district overall, is hire in people one at a time. And I've kind of coined it as organic growth. And we've allowed that growth of our budget to allow us to hire in one at a time instead of having to go back and ask for a levy increase to hire personnel and things like that. We've been trying to bring up our numbers naturally with the growth of the organization or of the community. The problem is that when you get rolled back, you can't have that same growth. And that's where we've actually, that's what we've seen. So the slow staffing growth is problematic, again, because our calls have increased by 37% since 2015. In 2015, it was, in 2015, our concurrent calls were 28%. In 2016, it was 33%, and now we see it's 37%. Okay? And we kind of talked about that already. Next slide. So here's just kind of a graphic based on what the calls have been over the last 4 years. We had 2,300 calls in 2021. We went down actually a touch in 22, but then as you see here last year in 2024, we went up almost 300 calls. So we added almost a call a day just in 2024 over the previous year. So in 2024, we had 2,724 calls for service. So what's the impact of this? So what's it cost to run the fire district? In 2021, our budget was $3+ million, $8,939 a day is what it costs. And from 2020, just in 1 year, there was a 5% change there. In 2025, our current budget is $4.4 million. Our cost per day has gone up to $12,059 with a 30% increase since 2020. So our current staffing model for the fire district. Our minimum daily staffing of operation personnel is 7 people. That's our minimum. When staffed at the minimum, we split them 5 at our Station 1 here in Oak Grove, and then 2 down at Station 2, which is located in Bay City. When we're at full staffing, which is 9 personnel, we split those personnel 5 in Oak Grove and 4 in Bay City. So what do we hope to gain from a community standpoint? This levy, if we return it to our originally approved level, it's going to allow us to immediately maintain the high level of service that we already provide. It allows us to kind of reset from those rollbacks, and then allows that continual natural growth is our hope. That growth, it accomplishes a couple of things. It allows us to remain competitive in pay with other fire districts, but also outside job opportunities. We have a lot of public entities in this room, and they're always the police department, I know, the fire department, the school district, everyone, public works, they all compete for the same types of people. These highly trained people that we've spent, that have spent a lot of money or that we've spent a lot of money on. So we have to keep competitive in our industry. The other problem that we run into, and I'm sure that other industries do too, is we not only compete against other fire departments, we also compete against hospitals. And so when we're competing against those hospitals, that's a different animal that we're not used to. Some of them are private. They can offer things that public entities can't offer. And so we have to maintain that competitive edge. The other thing is, as the community grows, it allows the fire district to grow with it. As the community grows, the needs grow, not just in calls, but in prevention needs, prevention activities, public appearances, interactions with other agencies. And so we got to make sure that we're able to grow as the community grows. So this is a graphic on what an increase would cost. So we'll go down kind of in the middle there. A $200,000 home, your assessed value is $38,000. So on your current tax bill for just Sny Valley, not everybody else, but just the Sny Valley portion, it's about $327 a year for fire protection. With the 16-cent increase, that 16 cents alone is worth about $61 a year. So at the end of it, for fire protection, you're looking at, for the operating levy itself, not the debt service piece, but the operating levy, will be $388 a year. Is kind of what we're looking at, and that's kind of the total. And normally you don't put totals in, but I wanted to make sure people understood the actual effect on that tax bill. So, staffing with normal growth. If we can restore the levy, our staffing could be 5 at Station 1 and 5 at Station 2. Our minimum daily staffing would move from 7 to 8. And just with those slight changes, this would allow more units to respond from both stations with less reliance on mutual aid. And how does 1 or 2 people do that? But because by adding 1 or maybe 2 people to the staffing model, we're able to redistribute those people from 1 truck to 2 trucks. And so, and I'm not going to get into the bunch of operational weeds, about how we run on fires and EMS calls, but when you can split those crews between multiple apparatus, those apparatus aren't committed to long-term things like the ambulances. If you have extra people in the ambulance, that 3rd person or 4th person is then gone, or 3rd person usually is gone to the hospital for a longer period of time. If we have another person to put them on a fire truck with, they stay back and they stay in the community longer, things like that. So just by adding 1 or 2 people per shift, it actually can have a significant difference to our staffing model. Okay. So, kind of to wrap this thing up, we know that a change in a levy is always difficult. It's difficult for everybody. We all pay taxes. We understand that daily life, the cost of your daily life is already difficult, and we're asking for a little bit more. But the costs affect your fire department the same as they do your household. We still have to buy fuel. We still have to buy dry goods or paper goods and things like that. We have to maintain our vehicles. We have to equip our personnel. All the same things that we have to do in our homes, we do at the firehouse. So with a $200,000 house, your annual cost for your fire protection is less than $400. Okay, we want to make sure that we have the resources to be ready to protect and provide the services that everybody needs. That's the information I have for you. Does anybody have any questions?
How are you guys planning on distributing this education out into the community? Do you have a plan, Tack?
We've done a few of these discussions with different entities. We're getting ready to start our some social media stuff, and then our firefighters are going to be out, hopefully distributing in the next couple of weeks.
Brilliant.
But I'm just here to give information. I won't tell you how you should or shouldn't vote.
Right.
The membership can do that on their time.
I love it. Got it. Thank you.
But yes, that's how we'll be distributing information. Any other questions?
Ladies, any questions for Chief?
You
Go ahead,
talked
Melissa.
about staffing, but I had a question as to, can some of the money be used for what you were describing as some of the training, and how else
Yeah.
can you retain your staff, because I know a few people that were EMTs that went over to hospitals to work in ERs.
Yeah.
So if you're describing that, as an issue with fire departments, how can you also use that money to train and retain
So
your staff?
one of the things that we aren't going to do, what this will do is allow us, when we build our budget, 85% of our budget, it goes to our HR costs. And so as we increase that budget, we already have our raise structure built in over a period of time. It's through our employment contract we have with our members. And so that raise structure is already built in. And so we make sure and maintain that piece. And sometimes then whenever your budget, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, it forces you to take things from other places. And so what this will do is it'll not only allow us to continue to be able to build the resources, but add back in things like, training isn't really a place that we do too much cutting. We try and cut other places because training is a pretty important aspect for our industry. But we have to increase not only the margin, but we also have to have the ability to change our pay structure as we grow so that we can remain competitive. And so none of it's earmarked to say we're going to hire 3 people as soon as, if this levy passes, we're hiring this many people. We've done levies like that before. That's not necessarily what this one will do. But what it will do is it'll allow us to keep that levy rate consistent with growth, and then allow for that normal growth to allow for us to hire in people. And then that way, and then training is always still part of it. The training's probably, training and fleet maintenance are the next 2 biggest things in our budget after HR. And then it's the other stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much for having us.
Oh, thank you, Chief.
I
We
appreciate it.
Appreciate the presentation very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll wait till he gets his. Thank you.
Thank you. Be safe out there.
The next item on the agenda is new business, and tonight we have a presentation by the Oak Grove School District regarding the upcoming levy questions. So we have the school district here tonight. We have members of the school board, and we have, I call him Assistant Super Dave. Are you the one that's presenting tonight, Super Dave?
Yes, I'm here with school board member, Mr. Randy McLean, and longtime Oak Grove resident. And I appreciate the opportunity to address this, the council this evening, so thank you.
Yes.
Well, first off, thank you for this opportunity. I came on board to work at the school district last July. It's been fast yet slow, but it's been a joy to work with Superintendent Hampton and an amazing board. I was attracted to the Oak Grove community because of passionate leaders like Mr. McLean. So I'm going to co-present with him this evening, and please jump in whenever it works. So Superintendent Hampton and I have a series of meetings across the community to kind of get the information out on what we need as a school district to continue to thrive with our educational offerings. So the big thing is communicating to stakeholders the difference between the bond issues that we've done in the past and our need for a tax levy. So the district does have a strategic plan. We call it a CSIP. And the strategic plan did say that they were going to run a tax levy last year, but the board and Superintendent Hampton decided to defer a year. If you remember, a year ago, the stadiums were kind of a hot topic issue. So other districts did kind of proceed with that, but they, as a community, as a board, decided to do the bond issue. So there is going to be some capital improvements, but we have to communicate to the community that when we build a gym or a classroom, or you put a new sign up, that's kind of required by law for us to make those capital brick and mortar improvements, but we can't always just put that towards salaries. The revenue that comes in, it goes into different buckets by law. We just can't move them back and forth. So where we're at now is that we really need to have kind of a levy increase to operate and move into the future. So what we're asking for, and the language is going to be kind of confusing on the ballot, a lot of legal jargon, is we would like to transfer 70 cents from our debt service. The patrons and stakeholders of Oak Grove were very fiscally responsible, and they put a lot of money towards paying off their debt, probably some of the leaders in the state at paying off debt. I'd like to transfer over 3 years some of those funds to put more towards operating costs. The big ask, and we know this and we don't take this very lightly, the board spent a lot of time talking about it, thinking about community members. But the big ask is a 60-cent increase to the overall levy. It takes place over 3 years, 20 cents in 25, another 20 cents in 26, and finally 20 cents in 27. And through research, and Mr. McLean can relate to this, we discovered that this hasn't been done in the community since 1983. And he's got a nice story he can share about that.
I was a 25-year-old kid in my third year at Oak Grove, living at 1401A Hillside Drive duplex, and I had a wall mount rotary phone. And Dr. Kendrick, who's our superintendent, came to me and he said, all of Oak Grove teachers that live in Oak Grove, this is your call list. Because again, that was old technology, but a telephone was technology back then. We had color TV, by the way, too. So I did a lot of, and called numerous people asking for a levy increase in 1983. Now, granted, I only had to dial 4 numbers because back then, this is probably like, what is he talking about?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I got
that's,
you.
Yeah.
that was before, the 625 and then 690 and then 816 on top of that. So that's kind of the history. And it's been a long time. And probably, that's probably a fault of ours that we didn't come back at some point in time. But I'm going to come back to you here in a little bit about how we got here with state funding, but because Dave's going to tell you where this is going.
So, in summary, the educational programs that were outstanding in the 80s, they're way different than the way educational programs look today. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but the big primary need is we are going to continue to make capital improvements in our older buildings, and we are going to pay off our debt. But the biggest thing is paying our staff. The vast majority of our revenue is going to go to pay for staffing. We want to retain our amazing teachers. I know that growing up, they always said the Royals were a farm club for the Yankees. Well, it's starting to feel that way with our teachers, as we could be a farm club for Grand Valley and Blue Springs because they can pay our teachers substantially more, and even worse, so can Odessa. So we need to make some adjustments to the way we pay our teachers. Also, what this does is before I became an administrator, I worked in the Blue Springs School District. They pay more, but my class sizes on average were about 32. So one of the things that attracts families and communities to the Oak Grove schools is that we have smaller class sizes. This will help us maintain that. We need to revamp our extra duty pay and try to back pay what we can to the staff because we're trying to get them to stay because it is a great place to work, amazing kids, but they can't help but be attracted to taking all of their years to go to these bigger school districts, which in the past that wasn't allowed. We need to recruit the best staff. Right now, I spent a day at UCM on Teacher Replacement Day. There were 30 school districts there chasing maybe 30 kids that are going to be teachers. So when we do lose staff, I think Superintendent Hampton told me the last 3 years we've lost 12 plus teachers to Blue Springs. We are then competing to recruit them with a very shallow pool of candidates. And some of them, then we have to train when we get them in to get up to speed, but we've lost our veteran teachers who are the best teachers at those things. The other piece that we want to do is we want to enhance our programming. One thing that is unique is, again, I can speak to, I taught in the Blue Springs School District. We here in Oak Grove offer very similar programs when it comes to activities, when it comes to athletics, as those bigger schools do. And we do this with less supervision. We have less teachers, so we ask everybody to participate in that. But we want to expand and give them the same offerings that schools have, like FFA programs, increased STEM activities, because there's so much more responsibility on us as school leaders to prepare our kids for the career force and not just the college and career force, so they can go straight to those programs. And then obviously, with additional revenue, we can increase safety and security, updating cameras, updating technology. This takes some time. So that would be a big piece. The biggest push would be the retention and recruitment of staff.
And to expand on the recruit part, when I retired in 2012, we had a social studies opening. I had 103 applicants. This year, we had a social studies opening. We had 3. 2 of those were not certified. So, and part of that is there's been it's a long story, and I don't want to bore you with all the details, but education's changed a lot. There's been a lack of respect, and unfortunately, the pay is just not there, and they move on to other jobs. Nationally, 47% of teachers leave after 3 years of teaching. In Missouri, it's over 50% that leave, because Missouri is dead last, 50th in the nation beginning teacher salary. We're 50th in the nation in public school funding, and we're 45th in average teacher salary. And that kind of blends into this next of how did we get here? How did this happen? Mrs. Hampton has put in a declining state revenue. Actually, her figures are not completely accurate. This is from I should have had this in the slide, but this is from the National Center for Education Statistics, and it shows, so I'm just not making this up, 50 out of 50. That's where we stand. Now, here's the piece that I find troubling and encouraging. Missouri is 7th in the nation in local funding. That says 2 things. There has been a tremendous tax burden shift over the last 15 to 20 years from the state level to the local level. And the second thing, that is, local communities have stepped up and supported their schools throughout the state of Missouri. And that says something. But it's frustrating, and it's frustrating to have one of my other volunteer gigs is I'm the Missouri Retired Teachers Association Legislative Chair. So I speak with and argue mostly with a lot of state legislatures on education committee and testify at hearings and things like that on a regular basis. And it's frustrating to hear a state legislature, or many, will tell you, well, you guys don't have any problem. You can just go to your local public and they'll give you more money. They always do. And that is so frustrating, because like when I was assistant soup here, the funding from the state level was about pushing 60%, 55 plus. And now it's just flipped. The local funding is taken that. So that's a real frustration and causes significant problems. The Hancock Amendment, as Chief Barnett referred to earlier too, it's a real struggle for growing communities. It was passed in 1980 by John Hancock, not the original that signed the Constitution, but maybe some relative. I don't know. It's out of Springfield, and they're still down there now. And basically, in areas, in his case, areas where Springfield was growing like crazy, tax assessment evaluations were going up, and he wanted to do something to put a cap on that. But it's really difficult for growing communities, because when your assessment goes up, you have to roll back funds. So you can't get any more than 5% than what you did before. And in high inflation years, you're losing ground, because we've had inflation of 8-point-something%. So it's a losing effort, and it's really a struggle. And just to cut to the chase, in over these years listed here on her presentation from 19 to 24, $6,761,367 we gave up in revenue due to the Hancock Amendment. So it makes a big difference. And you can jump back or get this. One of the things I really appreciate Mindy Hampton. She was a sped teacher when I was a principal at Oak Grove High School. She revolutionized special education at not just Oak Grove High School, but the district. If you followed Ruth Ann Hafner's amazing articles on disabilities, it brings tears to my eyes what she's done. But she's a great communicator. If you don't have information on this levy increase for the school, you don't want it, because it's everywhere. It's on our website. It's on Facebook almost every day. She's had sips with the soup. She's met with about every group in town. Again, I'm very biased. I think the world of her. She's an amazing lady. But transparency is a big deal for her. And that shows without reading through everything about people saying, well, it all goes to sports. Well, it really doesn't. You can see 3% of our budget goes towards sports and activities and athletics. And you can see where it goes. It goes to buildings and grounds, and it goes through our staff. That's where as like Chief said, that's what we do. We have to have staff to help to teach kids. And this kind of shows the expenses over time. I don't know what happened in '22. I think I do, but I won't say anything. That kind of shows where Oak Grove has been and where we are compared to some of the other school districts and the spending that they have. And going back to what Dr. McLean said, that sounds cool, because I'm not a doctor and never will be. He's no relation. His name's spelled even different. But back to that, it's so much has changed with teachers, because one of the reasons why we lost 10 teachers and teachers of the year teachers and teachers that took kids to Washington, D.C. and won them all kinds of awards, things have changed, because like I shared with you, the pool is not there. At UCM, they used to get 22% of freshmen walking in the door were education majors. In 23, there was 4%.
Wow.
That's not sustainable. So what districts have done is, in the old days, you would say, I remember bringing Teresa Brightwell back to Oak Grove. And I could only give her 10 years, and that was more than what we'd previously done. So she got she actually took a pay cut to come back to Oak Grove. But she finished out well, and she was a great teacher. But they don't do that anymore. Now
Can you
districts will
I'm sorry to
bring,
interrupt.
go ahead.
Well, I just have a question. When you say they don't do that, so they would come and sign contracts, because I actually wrote down to ask this question. They would come and sign contracts for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, and teachers would stay put? And
Well,
now that's not happening?
In the past, there were, let's say you've been in Oak Grove for 20 years,
Okay.
and you're going to go to Blue Springs, and they're only going to give you 10. And if you're at the tail end of your career, it probably would not be beneficial to go there.
Okay.
But now, all that's out the window. Now they're signing bonuses. They're
Gotcha.
paying you to
Okay.
get out of your
That's what I was gonna
contract.
ask. Okay.
They're giving
Yep.
you every single year. I won't say names, a teacher called me and that I'd hired, and with tears in her
Because
voice.
how do you turn that down?
And said, Randy, I got to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I am, because our retirement, PSRS, Public School Retirement System, is based on your 3 best consecutive years. And she made $33,000 more at Blue
Yeah,
Springs.
you can't turn that down.
Now, we'll never do that. We'll never, ever, ever get there. But we can at least compete.
Yeah.
And when you look at this chart, you can see at the beginning, we kind of get at it, But then that's one of the things, I was looking at where our salary schedule is and where it moves year after year, and where Blue Springs was moving year after year, or Green Valley, or even Odessa. They put more onto the base. So there's more incentive to stay, and you can just look at those figures, and when you start thinking about $39,100. I talked to the Historical Society Saturday, and Pat Koskin, he figured that was about what you'd make at McDonald's. And without school debt, without college debt, there's probably going to people yell at you at McDonald's too, but that happens, or any place for that matter. But it's different now, because schools are having to do things differently to get staff. Last year, not in areas like this, but 34% of the first-year teachers in Missouri were operating on a substitute certificate. They went online, filled out some stuff, watched a video. They were 34% statewide. were operating on a sub-certificate without a degree. Times are different. And the thing is, we got to compete with those people. We've got to bring those people in, because if you're a young kid driving through and you're going to go where, I hate to say follow the money, but you're going to go where the money is. So that's the big piece, is we're trying to catch up from, and as you can see down there, I had different statistics. Last year when school started, I had 3,500 positions open across the state of Missouri that were vacant. It's different. We're competing now more than ever to try to get people, not only, now, on a positive note, Oak Grove and other school districts, we have our Grow Your Own programs. And those kids are getting exposed to teaching early childhood, kindergarten, all the way up through high school kids and stuff. So there's promising things for the future, but that's going to take a while. I'm sorry, I get
I
long-winded.
would say, I left Blue Springs about 7 years ago as a classroom teacher. You see how they're at 90,000 for 25 years experience? When I left, I was on a committee that was revamping that, and at the time, that was about 72. So in 6 years, they've adjusted their base
Oh my gosh.
to 90 from 72. And again, like Mr. McLean said, they've waived all those years. So we're never going to be able to compete with Blue Springs, but I think we want to be competitive with Pleasant Hill, Odessa, Oak Grove. We just have to, the time is now to ask for this so that we can meet the needs of students. Because John Hattie was an educational researcher, and he found the #1 effectiveness towards a student's learning is going to be an effective teacher in the classroom. Thankfully, we have great administrators who are great coaches, and so now we have to coach up our young teachers who we hire. Again, being very transparent, Superintendent Hampton has provided this slide to community members that shows total levies of a lot of suburban schools, and also where we're at with our debt service levy, where we would be. Also, you can see all the school districts who have asked for a levy increase on the far right as well.
Almost everyone around us has already passed a levy.
So we wanted to provide some information to stakeholders on how this would affect them. There's also a calculator we are trying to develop that, again, there's a lot of things on our website, on our social media, on InstaSnap, Faceagram, whichever one you follow, and you can go see a presentation by Superintendent Hampton. We're going to be very transparent, overly transparent on what's going on. And that is, if you are a home and it shows the way that we assess different parts with the community. Personal property is assessed at 33%, residential 19%, agricultural 12%, commercial 32%, and that's the same across the state for Blue Springs, which has more industry, so a better base. That also affects our areas, like Pleasant Hill is going to be a little different than Odessa and us. So that shows how the annual tax increase on personal property, year 1 could be 20, year 2, 40, year 3, 60. Moving ahead, it shows a little bit of an anticipation of what this would be for you with a $300,000 home and 2 vehicles valued at $15,000. Annual house impact can be around $342 a year, and we can work off of
Sorry,
that.
is that total or that's increase on what it would be now?
It's incremental, because we're going to do it over 3 years. So you can kind of see the first year, it would be basically, $134 increase, and stay that way until finally, once the final impact of the 3 years, it would be just over $400 increase for, again, a home assessed at $300,000, not market value.
Right.
What the assessed at, and then vehicles assessed at $15,000.
That would be an annual.
We shot high, and it would be, the annually would be, what is that, $402, I think.
Okay, you're saying different numbers than what I'm seeing on the screen, so I'm confused. So just because the fire department said on a $200,000 house, it will cost them $60 more. What's the equivalent for you guys? On like a $300,000 house will be X more dollars, just because I want to be able to say simple numbers to people, you know what I mean?
Well, the first year, it would be $134
Total,
increase.
or
Yes.
increase?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Theirs is 3 years. They're asking 20 cents each year.
Over the year, but so
Right.
year one, it's
Year one,
$130-ish.
it'd be $134
Okay.
on a, again, assessed
300.
home of three.
Sure.
Obviously, if your home was assessed at less than that and you had vehicles assessed at less than that, obviously this is,
Sure.
and obviously if you own a really, 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 really nice place, it's gonna be more than that.
Right,
But,
okay, thank you, that's
yeah.
helpful.
So the next slide shows how this will look in the ballot. Because we're in this county, we have to follow their legal way and process. So it is really kind of confusing. I know Superintendent Hampton was very frustrated with it, but we have to operate with the rules. And so it kind of shows something in the beginning because it combines the two movements together into one total price. And so she's outlined to see the top part, what it speaks to, the middle part, so that everybody understands it still ties into this process of we're transferring from debt service into operation, and we're increasing by 60 cents over the 3 years.
And the transfer from debt service to operating will impact taxes zero.
So we really like to play offense and say all the positive things that we're doing in the district and how we need to further support those things. There are some things at risk, and we have to be prepared for contingencies as good stewards of the public's money. So to be realistic, if this does not pass, we would probably see an increase in class sizes because we would have to look at positions that leave the district and look at probably absorbing those. We might have to make cuts to transportation. So right now, there are a lot of districts in the state that have a radius around the school district that don't provide transportation. Transportation is a perk. And here in Oak Grove, they've transported everyone. But by cutting out a mile radius around the school, it could save several bus routes, which can then help us keep a teacher in the classroom.
The state of Missouri does not reimburse school districts for students picked up within a mile. They only reimburse for students picked up a mile or more. So we've been doing that since about the same time we passed this levy. We've been doing that, because I remember another story, but I tell too many stories. So anyway, that's the transportation piece that is that's, and again, I want to stress, these aren't threats, but it's just practical thinking.
Reality.
You have to look at, okay, if it doesn't pass, this is what we're going to have to do to not deficit spend. No.
So in reality, we have to be very cognizant of our reserves, and we would have to be reserve spending to make payroll, just like any business or entity would, until those tax benefits could roll in if it passes. We would probably see a decrease in vocational and career education. We are at a position where I am passionate about if there's a high school kid who wants to go to Blue Springs Innovation Campus because they have this high track plan, we're going to move mountains to get them there. And so we've been able to send kids to Fort Osage for VOTEC, to Summit Technology, so that we can educate the masses, both ready for career and ready for college. And we would have to make cuts to those things because it is cost us tuition to send them. We're blessed to be where we're at, and we're blessed to have those opportunities.
And likewise, the Career and Technology Center has always done a great, amazing job. As a principal, I was told no several times, but as a board member, finally, with Mrs. Hampton, we started sending kids, when Pleasant Hill was sending students to the Innovation Campus for UCM over in Lee Summit, which has amazing programs and amazing things for kids. We're now doing that. And then when Blue Springs opens up, that'll be even more opportunities. That's just tremendous opportunities for kids, but you can't do what if you don't have the funds to make it happen. And there's some great programs planned for next year with STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. But we can't expand programs if we don't have the funds to do it. So yeah.
And then finally, we have not, as a district, implemented fees for kids to participate in sports and other extracurricular activities. There are districts in the city that have higher tax rates than us that do. I taught at one, and they charged kids if you played one sport, you had to pay a fee. And that basically paid for all of their transportation. I kind of like that I'm a part of a community that wants those kids to participate and doesn't have to charge them. 4 key things to remember as we move ahead. Oak Grove staff, they're amazing. And we are losing amazing good teachers to higher paying districts. And again, that's the number one indicator for a student to be successful. It's been 40 years since our last tax levy increase. I think Superintendent Hampton and I realized we were both 4 years old when that happened. Oak Grove pays teachers less than Odessa. And again, if you are a senior citizen who completed the Jackson County tax freeze application, this will not increase your property taxes on your home. I believe it still could impact your vehicles.
And you know, on that, that's a complete unknown throughout the state. Different counties are doing it differently. It's a response to Senate Bill 190, which was a state legislation. We have no idea of really knowing, because we don't know how many people 62 years of age live within our school district, nor do we know how many 62-year-olds within our school district in Jackson County have applied for that freeze. I just saw in the Odessan an article about that Lafayette County schools had come to Lafayette County to say, hey, let's maybe not do this because it's going to cost money. Just a sidebar, right now, there are 125 tax bills. We're at the halfway point this week. The legislator is on spring break, so no harm this week. But they'll be back next week. And every one of those bills are either calling for a cap on a tax, fill in the blank, personal, real estate property, capital gains, a cap or elimination of. There's even a bill to eliminate income tax in Missouri. Nobody likes paying taxes, period. But that's 69% of our state revenue. We're not getting much help from our state legislature, I will say. And again, that's why the national statistics of dead last in funding at the state level, but 7th in the nation when it comes to local communities. So, yeah, we need everybody's help, and we want to get the information out there and let everybody know. And Oak Grove is a great place. You guys are awesome. It's a great community, and I hope anyway. I'm very confident that our voters will come out and say yes to support our schools. That's certainly our hope. But also next Tuesday night is a great opportunity as well. That's what this little flyer thing is about. I don't think we have this on here, do we?
No, sir.
No. We got enough to pass those around?
I'd have a few of these, but we'll have a community night, and OPA, our contracted meal service provider, is going to have some pizza. And it's a good chance to, if anybody in the community has additional questions, come in. In any way you slice it, we love our schools.
Get
We're
it
gonna-
pizza any way you slice it.
Yeah, I get it. Nice.
And we're very transparent and we're very open. I'd love to sit down with anybody that had questions. I know Superintendent Hampton would. We're working on a calculator too. We just want to make sure it was right. We don't want to put anything out there that's wrong, but come in and we'll punch in the information about your community, about your home, and try to give you the best information as possible to make the most informed decision. But I want to thank the council very much for this opportunity and thank Mr.
On
McLean.
that note, there'll be the three board members that are running for the two positions, they'll be there as well. And I think you guys are going to do an update on where the construction project is and some of those things, but sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
What
Thank you.
time, and you said the date, what time?
Can you give Kim that flyer and
will
she'll
do that.
email it to all of us? Will that work?
6 o'clock,
6 o'clock on the 25th.
OGMS comments. Yeah.
And when you have the calculator done, if you could send that to Kim to send us too. I
Yes,
think that would be
yeah,
really
that
good.
would be helpful too.
And to echo what he said, what Dr. McLean said, yes, thank you guys very much. I'm very impressed with this guy, even though he came from Odessa. But he didn't really come from Odessa, but he's.
Well, takeaway 3 is only on there
You
because
can-
it's Odessa.
Can you tell that I've been here since 1980? I was indoctrinated, arch rival, a long, long time ago. So anyway, I know what he's doing is great, and Mrs. Hampton, we've got a great administrative team, and we have, like I used to say all the time when I was principal, we have great students, great parents, great staff, and a great community.
I have two quick
Thank you,
questions. What is our class size right now?
It differs by building, but I'd say it's around 20
Wow.
on average. And I think that's ideal when you talk about young teachers who you're trying to teach to become better. Now they have a smaller sample size to focus on. We get quicker feedback to kids when grading papers. And I apologize if I misquoted on that because I know it differs at Oak Grove Elementary than it does at the high school.
We added a kindergarten
places.
teacher this year
Yeah.
to get numbers down, to keep them under 20. Because in the bottom line, that's the important piece, is fewer kids in your class, the better they're going to learn, the more individual attention you can give them as a teacher. It just makes sense. And I won't know names because you know this girl, but she's a teacher at one of the schools in Grand Valley, and she's got 30 kids in an elementary.
Insane.
And she's was very, very frustrated by that, and I get it, you know, yeah, because
One more question. Do we have teachers in our district that are not certified?
We unfortunately have to fill positions, we've had to hire teachers who were full-time subs. And here's the piece of, it's a blessing, but it's also not a long-term solution, is we've had to hire retired teachers. And they love it. They get to keep their retirement. It's a thing called critical shortage. And the state of Missouri is having to remove all of these parameters that are designed along something that's pretty important, that's being certified to teach. But we have to do it to get people back into the classroom. But hiring retired teachers are great as a stopgap. It's not a long-term solution.
and I would not argue, but how you define certified, because you can have a provisional certification or a temporary certification that is fully certified by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And we do have literally a handful of teachers like that throughout the district. We had one this year that will not be back next year on a true sub-certificate. But most of our teachers are fully certified, and the ones we hired the other night are all fully certified.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We thank you for clarifying that. I think that was important, and I'm sorry if I misled. The important thing too is with these different types of certifications, and the state is doing a good job. There are people that I know that would be outstanding teachers, but maybe have a business degree. Instead of going back and getting all the education classes, the state is moving us to try to get those people into the classroom so we can educate them and train them. But DESE is backlogged on even getting those certifications approved by almost 6 months. Because across the state, this is not just an Oak Grove problem. So this is a problem that we like to do hard things, is like what we like to say in school. But we're working through it, and we have people that can help. We have to change what admin is now. Admin has to become effective coaching and effective leading, not just handling paperwork and compliance, because we have to train them up all the time. The teachers are still teachers, no matter what seat they sit in. So.
And in defense of, some of you may have heard DESE or Department of Elementary
Oh
and
my God, I
Secondary.
totally was gonna ask for clarification.
And or Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and you may have not heard very positive things at all. In fact, there are legislatures that hate and would like to dismantle DESE completely. But they're the same legislatures like last year that passed Senate Bill 727, which increased teacher salary from the state, used to be state minimum of $25,000 to $40,000, but did not provide a funding piece for it. And so local school districts throughout the state, and there are rural districts in all over the state of Missouri that next year will have a teacher, first-year teacher, make $40,000, and one with 20 years' experience making $40,000. Because that's it. And those schools can't keep that up. In fact, some of them, some legislatures, rumor has it, that Senate Bill 727, besides, I'll come back to one more thing, but was to close a number of schools throughout the state. Because a legislator told me, Randy, we don't have a school funding problem, we're funding too many schools. And one of the things I've seen, I was telling Dr. McLean this earlier, Roger Nelson was a principal here years ago, great guy. He told me, he said, Randy, you may see the day when public education in Missouri is for the have-nots. And honestly, probably in Kansas City and St. Louis, we may already be there. But every piece of legislation I've seen in the past 5 years have been for rich white people. Or, well, they don't care what color you are, as long as you're rich. And I told one, I said, I would feel better if you just told me, Randy, you're right. I don't care about poor people. I don't care about SPED. I don't care about any of that. All I care about is rich people who put money in my pocket. Then at least you'd be honest.
honest, yes.
But that's exactly what's taking place throughout the state, and it's frustrating. I mean, you did a great job and wrote a great editorial about that. You know, the quote was something that education shouldn't become a luxury in the state of Missouri. and it shouldn't. But unfortunately, that's the direction some of our legislatures are heading. And, you know, have you guys heard of the recent utility bill that just kind of snuck right through both House and the Senate, is waiting for the governor to sign, CWIP construction while in progress, that throughout the state, that's another example of how just things kind of slip by. The utilities companies can start charging us before they even begin construction on a project to build more in the future. And who's to say they won't charge us more when it's complete? Opponents of that are saying that could cost us $1,100 to $2,500 a year. But again, who's benefits from that?
Yeah.
The rich. It's, get that mic away from me.
I was going to say that DESE doesn't do you any favors, and I've done some work for DESE on a grant before. I just crunched numbers. I was just a nerd crunching numbers because I've taught math before. But I wanted to say that you've recruited my daughter over to the FTA, and now she decided in the last year she's going to be a teacher. But you didn't mention something that I found very heartwarming, the Aspire program that she just interviewed for, and she's awaiting your decision. But that's a very cool program. Could you speak to that a little bit for everyone?
Yeah, so the Aspire program would be, I'm trying to think of the correct title here. I'll say internship, but I know we call it something else. But basically, we are going to hire, as employees of the district, I think maybe 5 high school students. I'd like it to be more. And basically, they've applied to either be an intern as in custodial or at the ECC or in our technology department so that they can give service hours and work and capacity, but they're also getting educational credit because they'll be taking classes that are aligned in conjunction with that. And so it's kind of like that workshop study program, but we eventually want to expand that program to not just be employees of the school district, but also partner with community businesses as well. But we kind of got to take one tiny step forward. There was an interview process. We have a wonderful teacher who's kind of an admin intern at the high school, Tony Leone, former coach, who's kind of heading that up. And so we've had a lot of interaction with our Pathways Alternative program because we just want to look for outside the box creative programming options to get our kids real world experience. Because here's the deal, if your daughter ends up being a teacher, we did our job. But also, if she ends up finding out this isn't for me, then she's going to find what she's meant to do earlier than getting through with debt, going to school, and quitting 2 years in. And so that's
2
part of it.
points. One, where I was going with the piece on DESE is they're understaffed and underfunded. They have positions open that no one wants. And so it's a struggle because of what they get shoved down their throat and that they have to make work throughout the state schools. And I feel like in addition, I can't say enough about what Mrs. Hampton and what Dr. McLean and what the district has done for students of trauma, behaviors, mental health, social workers. Praise God. What a huge, I'm speechless. It's awesome.
Agree.
So, yeah.
Agree completely.
We really appreciate you guys coming tonight.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
for your time.
guys for letting me
Thank you
ramble
for your
on.
presentation. Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
for the passion you show and the knowledge. And did you say that was available online, that presentation?
It's on our website, and actually, Mrs. Hampton talks through it as well.
Okay, yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
awesome.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you'll give Kim that. You're welcome to stay, or you can leave, whichever one.
I don't want to sit on the front row anymore.
Okay.
Go run some laps.
In church, I sit pretty close to the front, so it's not.
All right, the next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the mayoral appointment of Shane Stevens to the Jackson County Board of Equalization. So do we have Pam and Tracy back up there? Yep. So as you know, we have to renew our Board of Equalization candidate each year. And so I called Shane the other day. He's been doing that ever since I've been mayor. And it's kind of nice to have the same person that goes to the Jackson County Board of Equalization each time for the meetings. So I asked him, do you want to continue to do it? And he was elated. And so why not go ahead and have somebody that is excited. So I'm asking for approval.
I make a motion, we approve the appointment of Shane Stevens to the Jackson County Board of Equalization.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Shane Stevens for the Jackson County Board of Equalization. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the mayoral appointment of Anthony Smith and Jacob Swisegood to the Park Department. So,
Board, Park
oh,
Board.
sorry, yeah, not park, yeah, thank
Park
you.
Department.
Not department, he has a department. So Jacob and Anthony have accepted the call to serve on the Park Board. We had TJ Connors resign, and then Tina May is resigning. Both of them were ready to serve for their city. Anthony said I called him at the right moment. He had been told by his family he needed to step up and do something. So I don't know if that's a better way for me to sell those two to you. So I'm asking for approval.
I make a motion to approve Anthony Smith and Jacob Swisegood to the Park Board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Anthony Smith and Jacob Swisegood to the Park Board. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the request for Anita and Chad, owners of Just Chillin' Sweets and Treats, for the food truck nights. Anita and Chad, would you like to come up? Just a little bit of background. They were here last year for a few months. They came in the other day and met with Matt and I and kind of gave their vision of what they want to do and are ready to sign the agreement and do the food truck. Would you have anything to say tonight?
Absolutely. We want to say thank you for the opportunity to serve the community again. It's our heart's desire to serve the community. We have a lot of friends and a lot of followers, if you will, from the local area. And so we've had a lot of requests even before now for us to come back. So the only change that we had was what we already discussed. And so we won't have music or games yet, but that could come in the future. So we'll bring that. Everything else is as the same. All the trucks will have their own trash receptacles, things like that. We are in charge, and then we have Daniel Hipsher with Midwest Specialty Foods with the other blue truck. He will be our second if for some reason we are not here. Other than that, we look forward to hopefully serving everyone again and bringing some extra tasteful delights for everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Anita.
And I promise we won't ask for money except for food in return.
Oh, yeah. Any questions, ladies?
No, just thank you again for returning.
Yeah.
And
Well, they're-
I hope it's highly successful. I know that the community members I've spoken to love it, and I think it's amazing. And I just picture it getting bigger and better every year.
Looking forward this year to starting earlier. Last
You
year we
are
got a
starting
really late
earlier.
start,
Yeah,
so
yeah, which is great.
Get a little bit more,
Yeah.
people coming out and enjoying it too. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
So the
caring.
dates we had to start will be a little earlier. Last year, we started in July. This year, it will be Wednesday, April 16th,
Right around the corner.
and ending the last day being October 15th. So still the third Wednesday of every month. And if you have any requests, we'd love to hear feedback and requests as well.
Awesome.
Very good.
Thank you so
And
much
just to
for
be
being
clear,
here.
ladies, they are going to advertise, and then we as a city will share their post.
Yeah.
And then you can share it out from there. Very good.
Very
Thank you,
exciting.
Chad. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Week after the levy passes, we can celebrate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ordinance?
No, it's just a motion to pass their agreement.
I was looking at the wrong one. There we go.
We're still on 4.
Yeah, I clicked the wrong.
That's okay.
Perfect. I make a motion that we approve the agreement with Anita and Chad Tilton for food truck nights, the first Wednesday of every month from April through October. Is that right? Third Wednesday. It says first. Third Wednesday of every month, please.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the food truck nights for from April 2nd through October 1st, 2025. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action for Bill Number 2502 regarding an ordinance for sections of the, well, it's pretty long, and Rachel's going to go over it tonight
Yeah.
for us, but
Okay.
it's changing part of the ordinance. So Rachel, you have the floor. We get to hear the whole ordinance 3 times, so.
Okay.
Now
Okay,
you're like-
that might be,
now
that
you're
one
like
might be
the
better.
press person.
Okay. So if you looked over them, the section, or chapter 30 is municipal courts. And these updates are to certain sections of chapter 130, and they are of the municipal code as requested by OSCA, the Office of State Courts Administrators. After a municipal review conducted by the Supreme Court Monitor for Municipal Courts. The review was conducted to determine, but not limited to, compliance with Supreme Court rules, court operating rules, Missouri state statutes, state and local reporting requirements. So basically, it was kind of like a municipal court audit. Once we went on to the state system, which
Yeah.
we're on now, about a year after you're on it, they do this audit.
Okay.
So the changes that we're asking for, mostly verbiage that they determined, especially to Chapter 130, that needed to be in line with these rules. So I've listed in the ordinance, the actual changes to wording is the bold underline, and the deletions are in strike-through.
It was very thorough.
Yeah, for sure.
It was.
There were quite a few of them.
There was.
They're not really, they were somewhat minor in what they were asking for, but there were a few of them, especially under the chapter 130. So, would you like for me to read each one of them?
No.
No, you don't, we got the packet
Thank
ahead of
you.
time.
Thank
We read
you.
them. If you feel like you need to read it,
No,
Rachel,
no,
but you're doing
no.
a fantastic job.
I've read them.
So, ladies, this is an ordinance.
I move for first and second reading by title only of Bill Number 25-02.
Second?
Who did the second?
Sure. Second.
Sierra. We have a motion and a second for the first and second reading of proposed ordinance by title only. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. City Clerk, would you please read the full title of the bill 2 times?
An ordinance amending certain sections of Title I, Chapter 130, including Article 1, Sections 130.808, Report to Board of Aldermen, 130.190, Jailing of Defendants, 130.250, Absence of Prejudge Procedure, 130.260, Failure to Appear in Municipal Court, and Article 2, Section 130.310, Bond, and Article 3, Section 130.330, Court Cost of the Municipal Code of the City of Oak Grove, Missouri. An ordinance amending certain sections of Title I, Chapter 130, including Article 1, Sections 130.0080, Report to Board of Aldermen, 130.190, Jailing of Defendants, 130.250, Absence of Judge Procedure, 130.260, Failure to Appear in Municipal Court, and Article 2, Section 130.310, Bond, and Article 3, Section 130.330, Court Cost of the Municipal Code of the City of Oak Grove, Missouri.
I move for adoption of Bill Number 25-02.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of Bill Number 25-02 to ordinance. Any discussion? If not, City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Pam Pope,
Yes.
Tracy Newcomer,
Yes.
Sierra McMichael,
Yes.
Melissa Johnson, Yes. Kelly Neto,
Yes.
Rachel Kilmer.
Yes.
The motion is approved, and Bill number 25-02 becomes ordinance number 2129, and it is adopted. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action for Bill number 2503 regarding an ordinance of the City of Oak Grove and adding certain sections for the operators' licenses. Rachel, that's you again.
Yes, it is. So this is to add a section to Chapter 390, which 390 is licensing requirements. And to add the section to be in compliance with the Missouri State Charge Codes, which is a unique number assigned by OSCA to offenses for tracking purposes, arrest data, conviction data, as well as many other uses. Each ordinance or law or violation is attached to a state charge code, whether it be felony all the way down to municipal. Right now, currently, our officers are using section 390020, which is operator of motor vehicle without proper license, which if the ordinance itself does cover, you have to, basically it covers you have to have a valid operator's license. The Missouri State Charge Code actually has two separate charge codes for operator's license versus expired operator's license. And so we would like to separate those out for reporting purposes, for fine and cost purposes, court requirement purposes.
That's understandable.
Yes.
Any questions, ladies? This is an ordinance.
I move for first and second reading by title only of Bill number 25-03.
I second.
We have a motion and a second for the first and second reading of the proposed ordinance by title only of Bill number 25-03. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. City Clerk, would you please read the full title of the bill 2 times?
An ordinance of the City of Oak Grove, Missouri, amending and adding certain sections of Title III, Chapter 390, Article 1, Operators' Licenses. An ordinance of the City of Oak Grove, Missouri, amending and adding certain sections of Title III, Chapter 390, Article 1, Operators' Licenses.
I move for adoption of Bill number 25-03.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of bill number 25-03 to ordinance. Any discussion? If not, City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Pam Pope,
Yes.
Tracy Newcomer,
Yes.
Sierra McMichael,
Yes.
Melissa Johnson,
Yes.
Kelly Neto,
Yes.
and Rachel Kilmer.
Yes.
The motion is approved, and bill number 25-03 becomes ordinance number 2103 and is adopted. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action for a resolution regarding a projected non-binding property tax rate. Matt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is the annual non-binding tax levy that we're required to set by state statute. The non-binding tax levy does not impact the actual tax rate or tax levy. It's simply a mechanism to inform taxpayers about what the levy might be. The actual levy will be set in September.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any questions for Mr. Randall? This is not an ordinance, it's just a resolution, but I would need a motion.
I do have a question
Go
before we
ahead.
move forward.
You bet.
This is resolution in our packets, resolution 25-03. Is that's the same number we just did? Is that correct? And I'm just, is anybody else?
So it's a
Okay.
resolution number.
That's
The
what I
other
wanted
was
to
an
make
ordinance.
sure.
You're
Okay.
fine. That's fine to ask. Thank you for asking.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Okay.
So I make a motion.
I just need a motion.
To approve resolution number 25-03.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2503. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding an agreement between the City of Oak Grove and the credit card processing machine for the Park Department. Scott?
Sorry, our park software, which we got in 2020, we were limited into the credit card processing companies that we were able to select from. At that time, Global Payment was selected. They were fully integrated with our software, meaning if there's any IT issues, we get full support from not only our software company, but also the credit card company. Since then, Civic Rec has increased what they offer for fully integrated credit card companies because Global Payment has continued to increase their costs, as well as creating new costs. Our contract is expired. We're currently out of contract, and their fees have gone up drastically. So we did get a new price from them. My personal opinion is they created new fees to our shock and surprise. The other company, CardPoint, that was looked at doesn't have a contract, but after following up with some reviews, some hidden fees do show up with that company, although Civic Rec did state that CardPoint is growing and working hard to be a better customer. So I see them potentially in the future. Forte, when we looked into Forte, they were the easiest in many ways. They also are used by Blue Springs, who also uses the same software, and we did get good reviews from Forte. Essentially, all fees will be passed on to the customer at time of purchase. The non-compliance fee, if you look at the last page in the packet on that, in that section, the PCI non-compliance fees, that's a step that we have to go through to prevent, and we look to notice if we ever fall out of compliance to rectify that situation as quickly as possible. So we do not anticipate having the non-compliance fee. We worked through that with Global Payment, and we feel like we will be able to do that with Forte as well. We're asking for the 5-year contract. We feel that Forte is very fair in their price. The 25 cents only kicks in as if the 3% doesn't reach 25 cents on one single charge. Then after that, it's just 3%.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions for Scott?
I would like to thank the finance department for really finding problems with fees that would show up that would draw attention to us. So I really thank City Hall for catching that.
Go team, go.
Yes.
I make motion to approve the authorization for a 5-year agreement with Forte for the Parks Department.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Forte processing machine, credit card processing machine for a 5-year agreement for the Parks Department. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Didn't catch yours, Pam.
She's muted. I can see
You-
it.
you-
She's
you
muted.
gonna-
Yeah, she's
Is that okay to take that? For lip reading?
Aye.
There she is.
Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding approving the new cost recovery fee schedule. Scott, that's you again.
So kind of in a nutshell, everybody's aware the minimum wage has been climbing pretty fast. This year, it goes from $12.30 last year to $13.75 this year, and that has a direct impact on personnel costs at the Aquatic Center. In addition, inflation has caused impact on our chemicals, supplies, and we tend to be in the rear on raising our Aquatic Center fees to the surrounding areas, and then by the time we raise them, they then start adjusting their fees above. So I can say that City of Oak Grove's never been the leader in raising fees. And you look at what's existing on the chart, we looked at several cities. The Park Board discussed this in 2 meetings. There's some significant changes that's proposed in this. One, in 24, it was 3 and under that's free. We're moving it to 2 and under. That matches other cities. We actually kind of are the tiebreaker on that age. New, this year would be a non-registered additional fee. And so what that means, if you haven't registered in the park system, you will have to pay an additional fee to come in. We're asking people to register. This allows for accuracy and tracking, so we know who is at the pool, when they're at the pool. It's very difficult for our staff to properly write down a name, because people sometimes don't say their name very clearly. And so this really gives us an idea who's at the pool, for several reasons. We're hoping that everybody will get registered and we won't have the non-registered entry. So once you're registered, you'll get a card it doesn't allow you free entry, but you'll be able to scan it, it brings you up in the system, and then you would pay a daily fee.
Does Lee Summit does that, I think,
Blue
at
Sp-
Legacy Park?
Harrisonville doesn't.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
We didn't look at Lee Summit.
Yeah, it was.
And
yeah.
we didn't look at Blue Springs, but
Not necessary for me to say that, I apologize.
another problem we've had is with pool parties, not requiring them to pay the full fee up front. It's caused people to book parties, then cancel, and it almost turns into a private party for the other half. Or in another situation, the person that's responsible to pay the other half of the pool party is very late to show up, and there's lots of people trying to get in, and our staff is trying to hold them back from entering the pool, and you can imagine how challenging that is for events. So we're asking that fee be paid in full at time of booking, which might open up more people to be able to book.
Yeah.
And so that is the benefit, but we also recognize it is a burden to have to pay it all up front. However, we're still very competitive, and for the size of pool that we have, we are very competitive to other surrounding facilities for a pool party. The party room, it is showing more interest and more people are renting that. It's going up from $100 to $150, and that still gets you 50 free passes. So and that counts non-swimmers, and it remains to be a popular, as well as an alternative to the large pool party. There was discussion about staff would like to drop the resident because it's very difficult at the gate for people who really truly believe they live in city limits, but they actually do not live in city limits, and they are very mad when you tell them that they're not a resident. But it's hard on the staff member. Some cities have dropped it. The park board chose to leave it in, the resident or non-residents.
It's only for season pass though, right? Not.
Correct. We do not
Right.
we don't differentiate on admissions or daily admissions. And if you look at the net to all this, 2024, the pool operated about $100,000 loss, a little over. With the adjusted rates and the additional costs and the additional salaries, we would maintain that $100,000 loss. So it's not the goal to make more money, it would just maintain what we have. Now, obviously, if we don't spend what we're expected to spend, we could probably cut into that $100,000 a little more, but I cannot guarantee you a pump may not fail or something else may not happen, and so it's hard to say.
Well, I mean, even still, we're more of a loss than last year, right? Like
Correct.
by
But
about $3,000.
But that is we didn't go to the full amount
Yeah.
budgeted last year, so
Right.
we had some
Yes.
savings, so that's why there's a chance we will be under 100 on, yes.
As a family member, why would you choose to go to Oak Grove when Green Valley is at 120?
Because Oak Grove is better and closer. And
We have lots of people from Grain Valley actually come to our pools, our seasonal pool.
I'm just looking at the price increase is quite a lot compared to all the other price increases. It's not stepped or anything.
For just the daily entry.
The family rate.
It went up $50.
Tracy, you were at the park board meeting. Do you have anything to say?
Yes,
About the family rate going up?
Just gonna wait until.
We stepped that up $50, I believe, from previous. The individual had gone up 40, so we just felt that was comparable.
Makes sense to me.
And then it also matched Odessa's.
And I can tell you Odessa's going to raise their rates after they've asked us to supply them the new rates that we've do, so.
And Green Valley might raise theirs as well.
True.
Did you have anything else for the presentation?
I believe that, I'll just answer any questions if
No, I
anybody has.
just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Ladies, any other questions for the fee schedule?
I make a motion to approve the amended fee schedule for the pool for 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the fee schedule for 2025. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a request to approve purchasing a new outdoor warning siren to replace the damaged one at Southwest 30th Street. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. This is, as described, we were planning to put a new siren, or the new siren that was budgeted for this year in a new place, but this occurred.
Yeah.
This pole was 27 years old. We start looking at quality of the pole at 25, and this pole split by the wind in an unusual way. So we're asking for replacement of the siren, which is also 27 years old and wasn't economically repairable. And it will be installed on a new spun concrete pole, which we already have 4 of those in other siren locations. And they are proving to be very resistant to damage or rot, of course. And the siren would be, we only had one quote because this is a single source. Once you commit to a system, you're pretty much stuck with that system forever without much additional expense. So the quote is for $42,659, and that's with the new spun concrete pole and installation.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Any questions, ladies?
I do.
Yes, Pam?
I do. What is the lead time to get that installed?
Usually 4 to 5 months, might be as long as 6, depending on who else is buying sirens and how busy the factory is. And also, we're dependent on the factory that builds the concrete pole.
So that part of town.
So the current one is not, I'm sorry, the current one is not functioning at all, is that correct?
That's correct.
So
Thank you.
what's the next closest siren for that section?
That would be the one here and the one at Ben Oak Park. Can both partly cover that area.
So when you do your testing and you stand out there, those volunteers do, can you get a pretty good range of hearing those sirens?
It's very rough terrain, and it's kind of an odd place or a funny place to try to hear the sirens. When that was the only siren in that area, people at Ben Oak Park could hear it from there. So I think there is some function at Ben Oak Park, or from the Ben Oak Park siren and from the siren here at City Hall.
It might be good to have some sort of communication with people that live in that part of town. Just
Yeah.
like be extra wary,
And
have your
that
radios
Nixle
ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Text platform.
I don't know if we can
sign up
do
that-
information.
Do that in the water bill and then on
That
Facebook.
question had come up, and I always advise that this is part of a system. It's intended, outdoor warning sirens are just
there it
that,
is.
they're intended for people outdoors.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I always
You're good at
advise
that.
people to get the Nixle Everbridge phone app now, which is free to the user and free to the city for now. And I also advise NOAA Weather Radio, which
Right.
there's a slight expense in buying those, but that's also a very good way to get warning. And those 3 ways of getting warning are very complementary to each other.
So maybe let's get some communication out through all of our media, and then let's ask the school district if we can push it out with, they can help us push it out too, and just however we can get that out. Maybe Hannah can get that out in the article and somehow, I don't know, we just need to get that information out, because it's not our fault that we have to wait for it for 6 months.
And we repeat that message
Right, good question, Pam.
very frequently.
Yes. Okay, we'll work on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Time of year we are.
That sound good? Pam, we'll work on that for communication?
Absolutely. I think we need to do something.
Yeah.
Because
It's that time
every
of year.
time the sirens go off, we get that mass amount of questions.
I
Yeah.
think that is literally never going to change. No,
No, I know,
Even
but-
if we had every siren on every corner,
Right.
it has literally been the entire time I have been an alderman.
It's at the office.
Every
It is a big
single
deal.
year, It's always the same discussion.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pam.
I realize that, but there is a non-functioning sign and
Yeah,
we
of
still
course. We
need
do need to, yeah.
try to make people aware.
Right. And we need to really push the radio, what do you call it? The NOVA?
Noah?
NOAA, what'd you call it?
NOAA, it's
The Nixle,
NOAA, which is the federal agency that supervises the Weather Service. The Weather Service is part of NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration.
Okay.
Is
We need to
NOAA.
push that and remind our constituents and citizens that those are for outside, even though we know they can hear them inside, but they're for outside.
Sirens are for outside, Nixle is for your phone.
And your app.
And the weather radios are for your house, inside,
Very
wake you up at night.
Yeah. All right. We'll stay on them, so maybe we can get that 6-month moved up.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase of a new outdoor warning siren and concrete pole, quoted cost of $42,659.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of an outdoor siren for Southwest 30th Street. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a resolution for the city of Oak Grove adopting the 2025 multi-judicial, how do you say that? Judicial, I said it earlier when I read it. Jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan for Cass, Clay, Jackson, Platte, Ray counties in Missouri. It's you again, Mark.
Yes, this is a program that FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, started in the 90s, and we did the first plan in 2000. This is the 5th update. We're required to do an update regionally every 5 years for this plan, and it in no way obligates any local government to do any of the actions that are in this plan, but it's intended as a shopping list that we review the plan and think about things that we can do to mitigate different hazards that cause disasters. For example, providing outdoor warning systems.
Right.
Providing generators for public works infrastructure, like sewer lift stations and water pumps. Removing flood-prone buildings from flood zones, and lots of other actions like that. We've spent right now about a year on this update, putting this together. The State Emergency Management Agency has seen it and approved it. Right now, we're getting ready to submit the draft, which is what we're approving tonight, is the draft. We're getting ready to submit the draft to FEMA, and they will look at it, and sometime in the summer, I'm guessing, it will come back for final adoption by the board and all the other agencies that are participating in this. Nye Valley also participates, and our 6 school districts also participates in this planning process. If we apply for any grant that has to do with hazard mitigation, this plan is required to be approved for any grant for hazard mitigation. And frequently, we have opportunities to apply for hazard mitigation grants for different projects.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Any questions, ladies?
Thank you for participating. I like to see that we have the asterisk by our name saying that we've participated and that we're continuing to work on this.
Yeah, very good report. This is a resolution.
I make a motion to approve the 2025 multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, and the resolution number is 2504. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the approval of the FY 2016 CPF program grant submission for White Road. Matt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So as you stated, this would be consider approval to apply for FY 2026 community project funding for federal grant or appropriations to replace the White Road Bridge. This request will be made through Congressman Alford's office. City staff has met with him as well as his staff on this proposal. This is something actually that we just received a couple of weeks ago. It's a fairly new process for them. So an attempt to get federal funding to help with that replacement of that bridge. This would be an application through the Transportation Committee to get federal appropriations. We're going to ask for the full amount of estimated amount for engineers. Estimate was $495,500. So we're going to ask for that amount, and hopefully we get 100% funding. If not, it might have to be a portion from the city to cover the remainder of that. As I said, this is a new process, this new form that they just finished up, so not entirely sure how the process will work, but thought it doesn't hurt to ask.
Right. Thank you, Matt.
How cool would it be if they covered the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Be fantastic.
Oh, and I would like to add, sorry, Mayor, in anticipation of approval of the request, I did reach out to Sny Valley, the school district, the police department, as well as the Chamber of Commerce to receive letters of support. That's a big part of this application, so I want to thank them for returning that and being supportive in this effort.
Very much so. Thank you. Any questions?
Oops, sorry. I make a motion, we approve the, applying for the program grant submission for White Road Bridge.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to apply for the grant program for White Road Bridge. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is information reports. Mr. Randall, do you have one? Mark?
Expect interesting weather tomorrow, red flag warning, and Wednesday, which is supposed to start out in the 60s early in the morning, and the temperature should fall all day and maybe snow at night.
Mother Nature is bipolar this year.
Okay, Mark. Thank you for that
Okay,
report.
Mark, look at this. Gosh darn it, Mark, why'd you do that?
Yeah, I mean, Chief. Chris.
No report, thank you, Mayor.
Corey.
No report, thank you.
Kim? No report. This might be easy. Rachel?
No report.
Scott?
Oh, jinxies.
I was like, why'd you skip Scott?
I do.
Get a chance.
Wrong Rachel.
I do have a report.
There you go.
Some people have asked about the Truman Heartland Community Foundation grant, and the deadline is this Wednesday. We are working hard to get something submitted for that, and what we're looking at is replacing the 3-bay swing set that's over by the Webb Park Playground. That would replace the structure, would not do anything with the fall zone material. And then in future budgets, we might be able to address the fall zone material, because that's the number one complaint, is the sand.
Yeah.
So if we get the swing set replaced, the other swings that are there, they are in great shape, so we wouldn't have to replace those, but that 3-bay would be is a perfect start. I'm working on getting the numbers and stuff like that, but it's my diligence to tell you that's what we're
That's
working
great.
on.
Thank you. We appreciate that very much. Rachel?
No report.
Kelly?
I just want to say thank you to the school district and Sny Valley for being here tonight. Both were extremely educational and informative. And yeah, good luck to both. That's it.
Melissa?
Nothing.
Okay. Sierra?
No report.
Tracy?
I just wanted to tell everyone during our park board meeting last week, we did approve the tracks or the walking trails at Webb Park. So they're working on getting estimates on that, and that will be brought forward to us hopefully soon.
Did you guys get that? So you did? So the list that you sent from the $100,000, the park board, went through that list of all the items you sent, and they picked the trail, the connecting inner trail at Webb Park. And then if there's any money left over, right, Tracy, preparation for a dog park, right?
Correct.
Very good. So that'll come back to you guys. Anything else, Tracy?
That's all I got.
Okay, Pam?
I just wanted to clarify, I listened to the audio of the park board, and it was my interpretation, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Is my interpretation that that would be mainly ADA compliance in Webb Park to begin with? Is that correct?
Scott?
We were referring to it as accessibility pathways, and when it possible, we will make them ADA compliance, but there may, not all trails, and we're trying not to use the word trails because sometimes that seems off a park property or, but if it is a paved surface, we will be following ADA as best as possible. Sometimes there's some areas that, but for the most part, what we've looked at already, I think we can handle the ADA on all the paved surface that we would be putting in.
I remember now, your terminology was accessibility.
Correct.
And so that's going to be the main focus.
Yes.
If that's what approved by the board. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
And you'll get there'll be a drawing.
Correct,
at
yes.
when it's
Yep.
presented. Yes.
Yeah, and Mayor, this will get presented at the next board meeting, April 7th. So this is just to give, this was last week, the park board did this, so to give staff and park staff some time to put together the proposal. That'll come back to you guys before it even goes out for us to bring a
Right.
contract or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, very good.
So we'll get some drawings and then we'll have kind of a rough estimation, but we won't have hard numbers.
Anything else, Pam?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Snai Valley, for coming tonight. School board and school district, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. I don't have anything else. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
That was kind of slow for a minute there. Any second for a motion to adjourn? Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 We are adjourned.